However, this temporarily may last 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, in which time we will not be able to use ATMs and credit cards to do our transactions. Therefore, it behooves us to have at least 3 months of cash on hand so that we can conduct our daily business of buying food and so forth and so on. That's a very smart move to make. And keep a minimal amount of money in your bank account and put the rest of it into gold and silver. And if you have a shall we say, an inclination to risk taking, you could put some of it into gold and silver mining stocks. But anyway, to go on with Jim Winnie, this is what he has to say. COMEX, which is the commodities exchange where all these trades are made, and it's run by the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. It was ready to default on gold and silver in November. Rather than honor the notices for delivery, J.P. Morgan stole the funds in the accounts that were calling for delivery. Notice for delivery were replaced by stolen accounts. JPM increased the amount of silver in their registered vaults by precisely the amount that was supposed to be delivered. JPM, that's JP Morgan, effectively averted both a COMEX default and a European sovereign debt implosion. Now, that's only temporary. Those are definitely going to happen without any doubt whatsoever. How long it will take is another matter. But it's going to happen, so we have to prepare ourselves accordingly. Before closing, Jim provided a stark warning saying several million private accounts may vanish. Brokerage accounts, pension funds, mutual funds, they're all at risk. We're getting into the middle stages of implosion where I believe the public will not wake up until at least 1 million private accounts are stolen and completely vanish. Okay, so that's that. And I got a couple of things I got to go over, which, you know, I went yesterday. I went over the last 2 episodes to see what gaffes I'd made or what corrections I needed to make, and there are a couple. First of all, the graphics. I mentioned in the last one that the graphics I was going to put up, well, I was going to put up in the actual video, but they didn't take. So I put the graphics that I mentioned there, the one on showing how the purchasing power of the dollar has declined 98% since the inception of the Federal Reserve in 1913, and the graphic of the cartoon that was actually made prior to the inception of the Federal Reserve and showed what was coming, and that is what that cartoon depicts has actually transpired since it was first drawn those many years ago. So you should go to Facebook and just put in Cora Burcell, and it'll take you to my Facebook page, and you can see them there. And in the future, if I do have any more graphics, which no doubt I will have, I will put them on the Facebook page, because it appears that when I do the upload and I put something other than the actual video, it doesn't take. Alright, now the one book I mentioned, I was talking about it, about how if you wanted to have a graphic description of how the federal government has effectively robbed the people of the world since the inception of the Federal Reserve in 1913, when I put the video up, I noticed that the actual title of the book and the author had not taken. So the title of the book is Super Imperialism, and it's by Michael Hudson. And it's a very important book to read in order to understand how the federal government has been used as a conduit by the people that run, which is the banking system, that run the government, have robbed the rest of the world. Totally blind. And so the other thing I wanted to bring up, I did quote last time the original Rothschild from you know, the 16th, 17th century, whenever the Rothschild dynasty started. And the quote was, "Give me control of the money, and I care not what. I care not who makes the laws." Now the other quote he said, which is very telling, is that he said, "There are only 4 people in the world that understand money, and the other 3 don't understand very much." So this whole problem of money has been, and as I said, it's a mystery, there's no question about that. But the problem is that it's never been talked about. I mean, when we went to school, we never got any classes on money and what it is and how it works and how the system works. None of that. And it's a very significant subject. After all, what do we go to school for in the first place? I mean, we go to school so we can get a degree, so we can get a job, so that we can live. Because we have to pay for things. And the medium of payment is money. So, and that's never been taught. I mean, I paid no attention to money until I started to look into it when I was what? How old was I when I first started looking into money? 1999. So I was born in 47. So I'm 52 years old before I even begin to look at it. I mean, I just took it for granted. I mean, the only time I really actually thought about money is if I didn't have any. I mean, that's when money had any meaning to me. It was when I didn't have any. If I had it, no, I never paid any attention to it. So what? So I just took it for granted. Now, since I started doing my research, what I found out, of course, is very interesting, to say the very least. And what I found out is that actually money disappeared. Because when I talked about, you know, earlier episode, last episode, I think, I talked about how money had originally been gold and silver, you know, for 5,000 years. And it was finally demonetized, I said, in 1960. This is in the United States. In 1965, as far as silver goes, and in 1971, as far as gold goes. Now, what does that mean? It means they were removed from the system. In other words, money was taken out of the system, and it was replaced. Wasn't replaced by, because dollars, you see, up until that point were backed by gold and silver, or mainly gold. And from that time on, 71, the dollar and no other currency in the world is backed by gold. It is backed by the full faith and credit of the government issuing the money. Now, who has any faith in any government today? I mean, they haven't shown any degree of responsibility or maturity or fairness or proper management of the economy at all. Quite the opposite. They've actually succeeded, politics, in destroying the economy. So how can you actually have faith in an entity that is actually set about to destroy the economy? And furthermore, it has no credit standing whatsoever, because it's in debt. I mean, Who in their right mind would borrow money, or rather lend money, to an entity which is, I mean, well over its ears in debt? And people are still doing that today. I mean, that's incomprehensible. So it just shows how really ignorant of the nature of money people are. I mean, because nobody in their right mind would lend money to the American government. I mean, what's the interest rate right now anyway? I mean, how much do they pay you? 3%? If you buy 30-year bonds, U.S. Treasuries, 3%, and the inflation rate is 10%. So you're losing 7% on every bond. Just on the interest problem alone. And then on top of that, the whole thing is just being kept afloat with a, you know, how should I put it? Needle and thread, you know, with twine, with duct tape. And those bond prices are going to collapse. I mean, they're definitely going to collapse. I mean, there's going to be a default, one way or another. And the purchasing power of the dollar is going to continue to decline. So why would bonds be considered a safe haven? And they are. I mean, that's totally insane. I mean, that's complete insanity. So I'm recommending people, of course, what I've said to you many times over the course of the last 10 months. Just get gold and silver. And I'm going to go into silver in a lot more detail as time goes on. But today, the main subject of today's discussion is the fractional reserve banking system. Okay, so I mentioned last time that money is created out of thin air. I mean, it's just a computer entry on some keyboard at some Federal Reserve office, and it's injected into the banking system. But that's not the end of it. That's not. I mean, that's actually, you know, I mean, if you, from a certain point of view, as I mentioned, there's at least 2 points of view to this. I mean, so I'm going to take two of the. I'm taking one point of view, which is mine, which is that the monetary system should be set up in such a fashion that it's fair and equitable, and everybody has a equal access to it, depending on their, you know, their position in life and so forth and so on, and that it should be a system that actually promotes prosperity for everybody, and again, depending on how much we're willing to work, so that we actually do harvest the fruits of our labor. It's not taken from us through taxation and all this nonsense. I mean, personal income tax, which, you know, 100 years ago did not exist in the United States. There was no personal income tax. And but right now, you know, what did I read? I mean, they have the thing every year. How many months of the year do you have to work before you've paid off your taxes? And it's like, it runs into like May, I think, and it gets longer every year. So you work all those months, and by the time you get to May, then you paid your taxes, and then the rest of it's yours. And that's just, I mean, that's just personal income tax. You're not talking about all this other stuff that we have to pay in terms of, you know, buying food and gasoline and whatnot. So now, when this money is injected, you know, which is basically just a computer entry into a bank account in some major bank or minor bank that belongs to the Federal Reserve System, and when we deposit our money in our bank for quote-unquote safekeeping, you know, because we don't want to keep our money in our home, then that money, those are commingled, and